Brad, that you saw the guy that was absolutely ripped. He had some things there. He had some things that he needed to work on internally for him to feel better. And that's not going to be achieved through changing your body shape alone. Yes, it might have an impact, but there's some other work that needs doing there.
Hey, welcome to the Mental Health Takeaways, the male mental health podcast that's making a massive difference to people's lives. That was Seb, you just heard then, explaining that whole idea that we get into, I think especially as men, where we see someone who looks like they've got it made, but actually what Brad had been telling Seb about was that this guy was actually sharing that he actually isn't in a great place with his mental health, and we were getting Seb's take as a personal trainer on that. Now then, have you ever listened to a podcast and then got to the end of it and thought, what actually was the point in that podcast? Was I just listening to people chatting? If I wanted to do that, I could just take my headphones out and eavesdrop people on the bus or the tube. There's a point to this podcast. There's always a point to this podcast. We're called the Mental Health Takeaways because we give the listener takeaways at the end of the second part of an episode, and that's what you're listening to now. We will give you, from myself, a mental health first aid instructor, from my co-host Brad, who is a solution-focused hypnotherapist, and from today's guest, Seb, who is a certified mental health and exercise coach. We're going to give you the tips and tricks that we've picked up from this conversation, and we're going to repackage them and give them back to you as quick takeaways you can apply immediately. Now, so many of these male mental health podcasts are all about the elite mindset tricks you need to be the most dominant alpha male in the room, blah, 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 blah. Take a listen to this. This is a flavour of our podcast where it's three down-to-earth real men talking about the real issues faced by real men and the real advice that we can actually apply, rather than that nonsense idea of being in the top 1% of alpha males, blah, blah, blah.
Be as authentic as you can. Try not to be anybody else, because if you are, again, like you mentioned earlier, being yourself, being the most authentic version of you has a huge impact on your mental health.
Also on today's show, we reveal that Brad was a little bit late for recording this episode, and we find out why that was. We must make a mental note to not have other 31-year-old fitness professionals on screen at the same time as you and me. It doesn't make us look great.
No. You've now got to the bottom of why I didn't turn up.
Were you doing your makeup?
I was press ups, makeup, the lot. It didn't work.
And we pick up this episode where we finished off in part one, where I asked Seb if he felt more pressure to present himself as physically healthy as a PT or mentally healthy because he's a certified mental health and exercise coach. It's a great show coming up. We're really glad you're tuned into it. Here it comes, and don't forget to share it because there will be someone out there who needs to hear this. As a PT who also helps to improve people's mental health, do you personally feel more pressure to present yourself as being physically healthy or mentally healthy? And I'm sure there's probably a pressure for both. But I just wondered, and speaking from where I'm coming from, so I'm a head of PE at a school, it's at a special needs school, but I'm also a 45-year-old guy whose most active years are behind him. But I still feel a pressure to just try to look a certain way and just try to be seen, not always just eating raw chicken breast and stuff, but just not to be seen like with a Kit Kat chunky in each hand, going, getting into it, which is ridiculous. And it's probably an internalized view. It's probably only me that ever thinks that. But I do think that, like, oh, I'm the head of PE. I should be setting a good, healthy example. But then also I do this work in mental health. And I think there's an inclination to try to present myself as being like, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm really great. I never get sad, which is obviously bullshit as well. So I just wondered which one you feel more pressure to kind of put to the outside world.
I mean, I'm going to say I I feel quite fortunate enough to not feel the pressure in that sense in either. I mean, I'll try and answer and say which one, but I think the reason for that, like for me to show up and come across as positive, and physically fit, it seems to be something that comes more natural to me, and that's only because I absolutely love my job. Like, I have so much passion for showing up every day. I love moving. I love helping people, and I think that just automatically puts a smile on my face, and that automatically makes me feel good. You know what I mean? And I feel really grateful and privileged to be able to, for Monday to come around. Providing I'm not hungover or I haven't rested enough for the weekend, for Monday to come around and feel excited, excited to have an impact and change people's lives. So I think, I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, do you know what? I'm going to put that question to Brad. And say, Bradders, there's a word I've written down and then underlined, and I wonder if you can guess what it is around what Seb is talking about how he doesn't feel pressure to be what he's putting himself out there to be. Can you guess that word, Brad? Have we got that same psychic connection?
No, we haven't. I have no idea what word you've written down.
You could have had a guess. It was authentic. It
authentic.
Was It feels so. We've talked a lot about how people being able to be their authentic self is amazing for their mental health. So and being forced to be your inauthentic self is terrible for people's mental health. And it seems very much to me as if you're just being you, and the actual really authentic version of you is that person who really enjoys physical movement, but really enjoys helping other people with their physical movement. But then the same with mental health at the same time, of really enjoys trying to adopt positive practices for your own mental health, and really enjoys trying to encourage other people with theirs. Brad, what were you going to say? You're looking like you were trying to come in.
Yeah, I was just wanting to tweak that slightly for you, Seb. And I just wonder, so not thinking about you now, thinking about your clients. And I'd be interested to know what roughly sort of the percentage is of the ones that come to see you with a physical goal, even though what they're not admitting is that the mental health stuff is there, compared to the percentage of people that come to you from more of a mental health point of view, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So you were saying what's the percentage of people that approach me wanting to improve on their physical health, and which ones say mental health? Is that what you said?
So is it like 80% of people coming to you want you to improve their physical thing, or and do you get 40% where actually it's more of a mental thing, or is it not as clear cut as that?
So he's got 120% of customers.
What did I say? I said 60 and 40, didn't I?
80 and 40.
80. Look, my night's gone horribly wrong. Okay, I was half an hour late. I can't count up to 100.
What I was going to say, Brad, is I was almost going to say you're probably near enough bang on for 80-20. But I would say 80% probably more physical. As more recently being qualified, I've had more clients approach me about their mental health, because what we do is we have a mental health PARQ. This is something that I never used to have before being qualified, and this was just absolutely mind-blowing. The fact that you get the client in, you talk about their injuries, you ask them what medication they're on, but we're not physios, we're not doctors, but we ask them that. Why are we not asking them about their mental health? And ever since I started doing that, within 5 minutes of meeting them, that percentage has gone up. So more people actually open up and say, it is my mental health actually, that I am here for. But a lot of the time, if you don't ask them that question, then they won't say it.
Just for the uninitiated, a PARQ being a physical activity readiness questionnaire.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Physical.
And you put a mental health one of those to new clients.
Yeah, so we have so with MHET we have an in-depth mental health RQ that we go through. The way that I do it is I will always ask them about their mental health, and depending on where they're at with it, I may well go down that route of asking more questions about it if they feel happy and inclined to open up. But yeah, ever since doing that, I would say I've had a lot more people come to me for that reason. But maybe they've come to me in that day thinking, I want to improve on my physical health. But then after me actually asking them that, them realizing that it's, they're there for a deeper purpose or another purpose.
Yeah.
So good.
It is. It's like double gains, I think, because as opposed to coming to see you and getting the physical side, but then maybe going and speaking to a counsellor or a therapist, and I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but to actually just go to one place and to really feel like not only is your physical health being looked after, but your mental health is as well. I imagine you must form pretty great relationships with your clients, actually.
Yeah, incredible relationships. Yeah, I think especially the ones that are inclined to opening up, and I think as well it's getting them to perform exercises just to a certain level where they're feeling better, they're feeling more inclined to open up. They've got they've released endorphins. They've got their brain chemicals that make them feel good, and you're not in the formal environment, they're a lot more inclined to open up in that respect. So that's what I love. That's what I love about it.
Can I ask just another question? What would you say your split is in terms of male and female? And do you notice a difference between the goal of the physical versus the mental between the genders?
Are you going to say again, Brad, that is it like 75% male?
Shut up, Nibbo.
50% female?
Yes. Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry.
So I apologise that he had to come on at the same time as us, Seb.
Oh.
He's absolutely ruining the show for us.
You're fine. You're all right. Sorry, can you repeat what you just said? I've just completely forgotten.
In terms of your clients, what's the split between male and female? First of all, do you see more men, more women? Yeah. Is it about even?
It's actually always been more women. For me, I want to say more recently, more previous years, I've been training more men in terms of mental health. Again, because I train more women, it is more women for wanting to improve on their mental health or willing to open up about it. But I absolutely love it. It's amazing when a man will open up about it, because it is more rare. It is more rare, from my experience.
Nibbo, you nearly leapt out of your seat there. You better ask this question.
Yeah, something really, really jumped to me. I feel like we've just given you a maths test, Seb. Like, what percentage of people?
Yeah, maths is not my thing.
Well, it's
me
not
neither,
apparently. You said that you train more women, and also you train more women from the mental health, the MHEC side. I wondered though, if you thought, what's the gender split in the gym? First of all, like, are there 50-50 men and women in the gym, just with or without a trainer? What do you reckon that is?
I would say there are. It's hard. I mean, the gym that I'm in is a very commercial space, so I want to say maybe it's 50-50. But in the weights area, you'll find certain areas are more male dominant. There have been some women's weightlifting classes going on, which has been really nice to see. But yeah, I think I want to say maybe 50-50 in terms of...
That couldn't be a better answer for the follow-up to that question. Would you guess then that there are men in the gym that are going there to almost sort of self-medicate their own mental health, but they're doing it in that typical... I don't want to run men down because we're brilliant. But are they doing that typical man thing of thinking, I'll fucking sort it? like, I don't need Seb. I don't need someone else to help me with my mental health. I am here for my mental health, but I'll sort it. I don't want to talk to anyone about it. I just want to sort it out myself.
Yeah.
Would you agree that that's probably a thing?
I think, I feel like men don't ask for help as much. Like you said, they feel like they can just give it a crack on their own. And for that reason, I'm looking to run some men's mental health exercise classes.
Oh, lush.
So men's weightlifting classes, and then have mental health on the side. And it was interesting because I thought I came up with this idea not long before you'd reached out to me, actually, and putting in men before mental health. And I was like, oh, this is just perfect timing.
Right, well, I'm going to ask you your fourth would you rather, just because I think it'd be really interesting. So you are someone who moves around a lot. You're a very physically active person, but also you have an awareness of mental ill health through how closely you work with your clients, and some might come to you for those reasons. So I was wondering, would you rather experience the symptoms of a mental ill health condition, something like depression, for 6 weeks, or be injured and unable to train or unable to even exert yourself for 6 weeks? Which one would you... I know they're both bad, and so when we come on to the next round of questions, I'm going to rely on Brad to kind of pick the mood back up again. But which one of those is going to be least bad for you? Experiencing, say, symptoms of depression for 6 weeks, or symptoms of a physical injury for 6 weeks?
Yeah, that's a really, really difficult one. Like you said, neither of them, because they are both bad. I think I've never experienced 6 weeks of feeling, mentally depressed and low, but I have experienced 6 weeks of a physical injury, and I think I would probably go for the physical injury, because if you're able to think positive, which is what I did, I pivoted in that moment. I was unable to train clients because I'd actually dislocated my knee. So what I did was then I shifted online and I kept myself positive, I think. And if I was in more of a depressed state, then it would be, I haven't experienced it, but I think it would be a lot harder to get out of without the support. Whereas physically, I was able to pick myself back up. I'm not discrediting this support, but maybe, I don't know, as a man, maybe it's something that I wouldn't reach out for straight away. It might be something that I would try and get over myself initially.
I find that such a respectful answer to the seriousness of mental ill health.
I think that's the approach that I would take initially, even though I would be shouting at myself saying, get the support that you need.
I think that's a really respectful answer, and really interesting again that you're talking about how if you are able to maintain that positive mental health, then through the physical injury, then you can know that there will be recovery, and you will come out the other side of this. Whereas what a lot of people say with ailments like depression, it can be very, very difficult / impossible to see the light at the end of the tunnel and to know that it is going to get better. And actually, it's one of the things we do on the mental health first aid courses of trying to hammer home that message of recovery is possible and likely. Like you can recover from mental ill health. And whilst that might seem obvious to people that aren't currently experiencing mental ill health, someone who is experiencing mental ill health, they can often feel like, I don't know that I can recover from this. I don't know that this feeling will ever stop. Whereas, like you said, with a physical injury, you can know this physical injury will subside. I will get through this. So, yeah, really, really interesting answers. Brad, have you got anything to add to that?
I think it's interesting that point you make, that actually we've all had a physical injury at some point. We're all quite young, athletic men. I'm talking about you and me, Seb, really. But we all just kind of accept that, you know, if we get a physical injury, we know it'll be okay down the line. But it's interesting just to hear you frame it like that, Nibbo, that actually when we've got a mental health thing, we often don't, you know, see an end point or think we might find our way out. And I think just even putting that statement out there for people to be able to recognize that actually, no, this will also come to an end at some point. I think is just really quite important. So, but yeah, I didn't have anything else to add other than that. Okay,
it's a key tenet of mental health first. Hang on, it's a key tenet of mental health first aid that recovery is possible and likely, like it will happen. Brad, just before you jump into the other versions of Seb, we must make a mental note to not have other 31-year-old fitness professionals on screen at the same time as you and me. It doesn't make us look great.
No.
So can we just jot that down?
You've now got to the bottom of why I didn't turn up.
Were you doing your makeup?
I was press ups, makeup, the lot. It didn't work. Cool.
It didn't. Sorry, Brad.
Okay. So Seb, we're gonna go into our sort of final round of questions now, and it's going to be an opportunity for you to connect with yourself, previous Sebs and later Sebs. So to start off with, you're going to have 1 minute, and 8-year-old Seb is going to come into the room, and I'm just really curious as to what you would say to 8-year-old Seb in that 1 minute.
That's a brilliant question. What would I say to my 8-year-old self? First of all, I would say be patient. Things, don't happen overnight. Keep going. Believe in yourself, I think, because that was something that I struggled with a little bit growing up, just believing in myself, that I could achieve what I wanted to achieve. And yeah, just be as authentic as you can. Try not to be anybody else, because if you are, again, like you mentioned earlier, Matt, being yourself, being the most authentic version of you has a huge impact on your mental health. Yeah, just do what you love. Do what you love. Be passionate, and yeah, just keep pushing.
Brad, I told you he'd be a brilliant guest, didn't I?
You did indeed. Okay, 8-year-old you skipped off. Very appreciative of those wise words. And now 18-year-old you has walked into the room, Seb. What would you say to him? What advice would you give 18-year-old you?
Again, they would probably, I didn't know this was coming up, the 18. Again, it would be quite similar. I think 18-year-old me, again, just be you, because naturally, if you're going to be yourself, then naturally you're going to attract the people that want to be around you. I think that's so important. And yeah, when I was 18, I still had this passion for health and fitness. Don't really know where to go with this, to be honest.
Were you on the pathway then, Seb? Were you doing health and fitness stuff at that point?
Yeah, so I was. So at 18, I was more into my sports. So I wasn't sure on how I wanted to make it a career. But I was, when I was 18, I was competing. I was playing a lot of football, and I think I mentioned in the preview about that being the best way to express myself through movement. And yeah, I would just say, just keep doing that, and then if you keep doing that, something will show up. And I feel lucky enough to be able to, as I said, now share my passion with others. And to be able to teach and educate.
Do you find a big difference between team sport culture and gym culture? That they feel like I don't know many people who have been quite into both of them. People seem to naturally either be a team sports person or more of a gym and fitness person. And I just wondered if you'd noticed similarities between those cultures, differences between those cultures.
Yeah, I think there is. I mean, obviously, with a team sport, it depends. It really depends on what I find what sport you're playing and the people within the team. But I think obviously in a gym there isn't very much culture unless you're part of, I don't know, something like a CrossFit group or something like that. Yeah, it's very much individual. And you're very much on your own.
Brad has said on a previous episode that he's been in the gym not long ago, and he noticed that it was only him and another guy that didn't have headphones in, and that everybody else was just plugged in, closed off to the outside world, which is why kind of... And team sports is the total opposite to that, and that everyone's kind of connected with each other. I just found it interesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I always encourage my clients to take up sports, because you never do sport on your own, even if it is like even if it's a single sport, you know, you play tennis or something like that, you're still playing with someone. And you're able to connect, I think. So I always encourage my clients to do that. But yeah, it's interesting you said that. I actually don't wear headphones in the gym, and I'm pretty much the only one that doesn't. And I absolutely love music. Like I listen to it all the time, but not in the gym, because I find that it's distraction. It's a massive distraction for me. And I like to be able to connect with people as well.
This is like the authentic version of you is exactly what you're doing now, isn't it? Like that is absolutely you through and through. Sorry, Brad, I've kind of hijacked you. You wanted to go
it's
another
all right.
version of...
I wondered as well, because in both of those, with 8-year-old you and 18-year-old you, it was important for you to say, be yourself. Is that, and I think that you are someone who is really confident in yourself now, and you've found where you are. But was that not the case when you were younger, would you say?
Yeah, I would always look at, you know, others and think, you know, do I need to be a certain way to fit in? You know, whereas... And then over the years, when I started taking part in sport, again, I was able to be more of me and just, again, my authentic self. And I think that was kind of the gateway into me becoming the person that I am.
Cool.
And yeah, I think when I'm at work, again, I am just being me. And I'm still on this journey of trying to still be me completely outside of work as well.
Excellent. Well, 18-year-old you has gone now. And at this point, we'd normally say 80-year-old you is scuttling in. But I'm going to say that 80-year-old you has still got a spring in his step and has just, you know, casually walked in, fit as a fiddle. Is there anything that you would like to ask your 80-year-old self?
That I would like to ask my 80-year-old self? Yeah, what did you need to do in order to keep yourself happy mentally, first of all, but I think also, in physically good shape. Ideally, I'd like to be. I would ask myself that. What did I need to do? And I think I know what the answer is. But
I love it when people know the answer. Go on.
Yeah, it's very simple. It's just keep moving. Just keep yourself moving.
Yeah,
I think as we get older, we become more and more sedentary. We lose touch on things that we enjoy physically, and again, we lose connection with friends. Again, which is why I talk about sport. You know, if you have friends that share the same interests, and it's something physical, then that's such a powerful thing. And I have clients as well. Like when you said 80, I have clients that are near enough in that age, and I look at them and I see how inspiring they are, and I love that. I was going to do a post about it the other day, actually. There's nothing better than when the client inspires you.
Yeah, I love the sound of that as well. It sounds brilliant. Brad, are you good for us to go on to the takeaways?
Yeah, I think so. I think let's wrap things up nicely.
So, my takeaways, I've got two. I reckon Brad's going to be annoyed at me for the first one.
Oh, that's why you've gone first, because you spotted me write it down.
It's Stay out of this, you.
He's going
Nothing
in.
to
He's
do
going in.
One of the things that I really enjoyed about what you said was that if you were feeling good mentally, you couldn't give a shit how you looked physically. And I thought that was, it's easy, I think, for our listeners that don't know Seb, go to his page, go to his Instagram page, you'll see what he looks like. Seb is in good physical shape, so it's easy for him to say that he couldn't give a shit about what he looks like physically. But I think it's important for us to destigmatize that and for us to realize everybody can experience body confidence issues, regardless of whether you are a fitness professional or just your man in the street. Everyone can experience that. So Seb is as susceptible to that as anyone. But I loved when you said that, that if you're feeling good mentally, you couldn't give a shit what you look like physically. And I think that's a really key takeaway. So I think if people are looking at themselves in the mirror and thinking, oh, I don't like how I look, well, then don't just focus on the physical, focus on the mental as well. Focus on feeling better and actually how you look from one session in the gym to the next. Over the course of one session, you're not going to change how you look physically, but you may well change how you feel about how you look. So that was my first takeaway. And my second takeaway was right at the end there for your questions for your 80-year-old self. And it was just keep moving. That actually good mental health advice can be as simple as those two words. Brad's smirking at me like I've nicked his answer. Good mental health advice. So I did a degree in sports science. My final year work was my dissertation was in sports psychology. It wasn't to do with what I'm about to mention, but it was in sports psychology. And in that, they mentioned the best sports psychology advice of all time is just do it. Like, it's literally the best sports psychological advice you can give anyone ever. Just do it. And actually, when it comes to mental health advice, we've shrunk that down by a word and got it to keep moving. And I think that's really, really powerful. And I think we've touched on all the way through the episode of how that movement can be team sports, can be going to the gym, it can be just being more physically active in your daily life, but just keep moving and you will notice the benefits to your mental health as well. So those are my two takeaways. Brad, have you got a massive, great big long list as usual?
No, I haven't. I love that. Keep moving was on mine, and I love how it can be applied to physical as well as mental. It is about just keeping moving, and knowing that you will get, if times aren't great, then you will get through that, whether it's physical or whether it's mental. But you just got to keep moving. I just wanted to pick up on your first takeaway, actually, Nibbo, which is the whole, when Seb said, if I feel good, I don't give a shit how I look. And I thought of two examples straight away. One is really recent, as in yesterday. One is a little bit older, in that I once was chatting to a guy, and I go to the gym a lot. You can't tell because you can just see my head floating, but I'm a unit. I'm just out of shot there. But I go to the gym a lot, and I was in the spa. I like to go in the spa afterwards. And I got chatting to some different people, and there was a guy in there. Now, this guy was in incredible shape. Like, he was, I looked at him and thought, wow, if I looked like that, I would be buzzing. And interestingly, because we'd got on to talking about hypnotherapy, and I was just talking to people in there about it. And then he started to open up about his anxiety. And I just think that highlights that point that, to look at this guy, you'd be like, wow, you have got life. You are winning at life. You've got the physique. He was a handsome guy, but he wasn't, because that mental part wasn't there. And then the recent one from the weekend was really interesting conversation I overheard. So, and I'll never see these people again because they weren't regulars at my gym and spa. But I was sat in the hot tub, and these two girls came in. They were quite young. I'm not very good at ages, but I don't know, probably late 20s, early 30s. Similar sort of age to you, Seb. and they were sat next to me and they were just chatting. And this is probably totally off topic now. And Nibbo, you might just cut this out, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Yeah, I am just wondering where you're going with this.
They were talking about. One of them said, oh yeah, that a friend of theirs was saying how they've got really similar physiques, but their faces look quite different, and one has a much fuller face, but their physiques are quite the same. And I'm kind of like, well, yeah, but that's down to your bone structure, and so people's faces are going to be different. Yeah, if you gain weight, then you will see that everywhere. But they then went on to talk about what they were going to get done, and both of them, and they were just, they were nice looking women, like average, but they were both talking about. They said that their friend had said about taking some fat burning pills or something to break down the fat somewhere. And then she was like, "Oh no!" But I told her not to do that because instead she should get implants. And they were literally pointing all over the face, all these places where they were going to get injections. And my overarching thought, and I had to bite my tongue because I nearly said it, and then I thought, no, it's not right. But my overarching thought was to think, I think rather than spend your money on that, you should spend your money just trying to help, your thought process. Because you don't need to do that stuff. And actually, when you have done that stuff, you're still going to feel the same. So, like, fix the mental side. And then, like you said, when you're feeling good, you don't give a shit what people think. And you feel confident and you feel good anyway. So I just thought they were two quite different examples, but the same principle that actually, if your mental head is not squared away, then it doesn't matter what you look like physically anyway. So yeah, that just links to what Nibbo was saying. Mine, I love the keep moving. Like I said, I think it's so important, physically or mentally.
That was my takeaway. Get off.
That was yours. The other one, you talked early on about the importance of intrinsic motivation and it not being focused on the external, that actually you enjoy the process. And I would imagine that is something you really drive into your clients, that they come with you. That it's not about, okay, work with me for X amount of time and you'll look like this. It's actually, let's enjoy the process. Let's think about what the goals are, and they want to turn up for them and for nobody else. So I think, like, actually, whatever you're aiming to look for, you need that intrinsic motivation, and it has to come from you and inside you.
Strong answers. Thank you, Brad. Seb, have you got any takeaways from the conversation?
Yeah, so many of us kind of moved, as I said, and use, as I said earlier, especially people that are starting out, use exercise as an accessory and as a means to an end, rather than being journey focused. And I think kind of off the back of that, it's making sure that it's got to feel good. It's got to be enjoyable ultimately, so that, you can be consistent. And I kind of said earlier, I think I might have said this already, but kind of touching up on what you said, is being your most confident self is when you no longer kind of care about what other people think, and you're just being authentically you. That's kind of the way that I see it. And confidence is internal, not external. A bit like you said earlier, Brad, that you saw the guy that was absolutely ripped. He had some things there. He had some things that he needed to work on internally for him to feel better. And that's not going to be achieved through changing your body shape alone. Yes, it might have an impact, but there's some other work that needs doing there.
Cool.
Seb, I knew from the outset, Brad and I huddled around a table in a Wetherspoons in Exeter talking about who should we get on this podcast that we're going to make that we hadn't even made yet. Brad, if you check back that original list, Seb is definitely on that list of me saying, there's this guy, we've got to get this guy on. And I'm really, really, really pleased that we did. I expected there to be some learning from this conversation. I don't think I expected there to be this much learning, and for the learning to be of this higher quality. But I think this is Seb, you've been a great guest. We always thank the guests because it's just polite, but we're really confident that there will be people out here that will hear this very conversation and it will help them in some way. Maybe they'll decide to take up exercise or team sport. Maybe they'll decide to look you up. And for anyone that's interested in that, the link to Seb's page will be in the show notes for this episode, so it'll be there. But I just think that this conversation will help lots of people in ways that we can't even imagine. So what's happened with the podcast so far is people have always got in touch, listeners have got in touch and said, this episode helped me in this particular way. And it's always a way that we didn't anticipate, but it's always new to us. And so I think there'll be lots of that from this episode. So on behalf of our listeners, but also from me and from Brad, thank you ever so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, Seb, and thanks you guys for listening. We appreciate your support. We appreciate your listenership. We have a special episode coming out next Sunday, which is obviously Remembrance Sunday. Our guest next week is a guy called Lee. He was in the armed forces for 8 years, and he talks about his experience of his mental health within the armed forces and then since leaving it, and the differences and the challenges that he's faced along that journey. However, we still take the Mental Health Takeaways approach of keeping it a light, informal, bouncy chat that actually is really easy to engage in, because we need men to be engaging in these conversations so that we are able to talk about our mental health. Tune in next week for that, and thanks again for listening.